Welcome to One Shots Tavern, a TTRPG podcast where we explore different tools and TTRPG styles in order to become better storytellers and better game masters. I'm DJ, and today I am joined by Alice from Feypop. Alice, tell us about.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm a game designer, but I don't really like doing the rules part as much. I like layout and UI stuff and user research and asking questions and narrative design and the story stuff and the flavor text. So I end up doing lots of weird kind of stuff. And usually I work for companies and things. And I miss being able to be like, I made this. So I started getting into social media and eventually I released my own projects on Feypop.com, coming soon.
Very awesome. Yeah, listen, you are really good at social media because you're very interesting when you like talk about things informationally or like your interests. You do so in a very like, oh, that's I'm gonna actually sit and listen to this entire thing. You don't drone or anything like that, and I think that was the thing that like made me go and like follow you immediately because like me and my wife were just sitting and watching TikTok and we were just like, this is great, this is awesome content. uh, so yeah. Tell me about Feypop. Tell me about all the aspirations that you have for this new rebrand, because you used to go by Whims Academy. There we go.
Yes.
And recently you did the rebrand to Feypop, which is a fantastic name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. So, my AC was broken for a month, and I plan to, at this point, have already released a bunch of games. I couldn't really do that because I have a disease where, like, when there's a heat advisory, I'm one of the people who like should be
Not
scared of
be.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I couldn't be in my office, right? It's the old people, the babies, and me. So I had to like I couldn't work on my computer, work on any games, and just spiraling around into little side tangents and stuff. And I was talking with some people. I reconnected with old designers I knew, and I was learning about like branding and marketing because I hit a point where I'm like, okay, I can start turning into the generic, kind of like just gooey e-shopping channel that TikTok wants every big creator to be,
Right.
and lose any sense of content or identity. Or like I want to like double down on making my own cool stuff. So I wanted to like be able to pivot in a way where I can justify doing this, and hopefully make like a business or something out of this.
Yeah.
And then when it came to branding, right there, that was one of the issues I noticed. You stumbled over the word. And that happens. And that's totally fine. That's normal. But like those little things like that of like trying to better understand brand identity and what's effective and what spreads. So that involves looking at like a bunch of company names, look at successful companies, not successful companies, and try to figure out like what are the patterns here in how they're marketing themselves. And I talked to an old designer I knew who's like a really sharp user researcher, who also helped give me a ton of information. And yeah, things like short names, like one or two words, is like super cool. So I wrote down a bunch of words and themes I liked for how can I present like the kinds of stuff I want to make. And in a notebook, I have a bunch of insane scrawls of like light academia, cottage core fantasy words. And then you start kind of mashing them together and narrowing them down and what's easy and what works. And that turned into a kind of an obsession for like a week or two. Feypop was not the one I placed my first bet on winning, but then you find some like 12-year-old or something who like 8 years ago just made an account with a name and then like, okay,
Yeah.
that's out. I can't have that.
It's an amazing name, so you could feel confident in it, I promise you. It's funny you say that because Andrew, who of course isn't here, but he would be able to ramble on about this, ran into kind of the same issue about,
Everyone does.
let's see, 2017, I believe it was. He started going by Chronoforge on everything. It was on Twitch, on YouTube. He was designing under that, basically anything and everything and then all of a sudden he got busy and wasn't paying attention, and he never copyrighted it. He never trademarked the name. That's what it is, trademarked when it comes to that. And so like to the point where yes, he could have said, hey, my name first, implied trademark. Unfortunately, he let it slip. And a mobile NFT game came out
Oh.
called Chrono Forge, and he didn't find out about it until probably about a year ago, after it was too late to say, hey, that's my name. And it was such a good name because he got it from a campaign he was running where there was literally a time forge. I remember very well because he made the greatest terrain for it. But anyway, what are your favorite TTRPGs to run? And what are your favorite TTRPGs to play as a character?
Ooh, okay, so I've also done lots of research on different types of players and
Yeah.
experiences that we like from play, all those different models over time. And a classic model through the 90s broke it up into like gamist, simulationist, and narrativist. Um, in its popularized form, it was credited to Ron Edwards. I found out that's not true. I interviewed one of the women who originally came up with it in that discourse, like on like old web forums beforehand. Super cool. Tragically, all the video and audio is way too bad to upload. But it's a good way of breaking up types of games linguistically. So I like narrativist games, which are story games, focusing on that
Mm-hmm.
kind of emotional arc and like satisfying stories and reveals. Um, when it comes to playing games, I like weird stuff. I do like Powered by the Apocalypse type things. I can get very kind of shoot in surprising directions a lot. I'm trying to think. I played Lancer recently. That was fun, but that's way different. That's like the
Yeah,
opposite of this.
that's what I'm really
Um,
excited about to
yeah,
try.
it's super cool. When I run, I don't know. Lately, I've been running a D&D game. Um, it's like a now a homebrew sequel to Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which my group
Oh,
finished.
nice. Yeah.
But it's very like kind of Douglas Adams, like Hitchhiker's Guide or like The Good Place, just bouncing through different Feywild
Yeah.
realms. And we haven't had a fight in a very long time. It's just kind of vibesy and we make
Yep.
up rules
Yep.
on the fly. So I like that kind of rules light, ratchet down the complexity kind of thing, focus more on the bonkers story. I can't think of any other good. A really one I took a look at that I would love to run is Lady Blackbird, which is kind of PBTA inspired, and it comes with completely pre-generated set characters. It's like this is to tell this kind of
Yeah.
story, and I think that's super cool. Like a TTRPG kind of as a playset, lets you really dig harder into like the design and the narrative focus and the
Yeah.
story. And I'd love to give that a try. That's like next on my list.
That kind of reminds me of Eat the Reich, which I haven't played yet. I missed the chance to play it with Jack and Cameron, but it's like, here are the characters. There's no character creation. Play the game, right? Finish the story. You're going to die. It's fine. Just have fun. And I think that's the type of rules light TTRPG I really like, where I don't have to think about character creation at all. If I'm going to play a rules light game, I don't want to spend 20, 30 minutes figuring out what I want to be. Honestly, as much as I'm trying to get away from Dungeons and Dragons as like my main thing, I still love playing Dungeons and Dragons a lot. I love being a player, and I also like to run it. There's just something, nostalgic about that, even though I know that there are a ton of other games out there, right? The ones you named, and recently I've been really liking Fabula Ultima because I love the rolling resolution and the simplicity of the character sheets. But at the same time, like we tried at Gen Con Starfinder 2 or 2E on Foundry, and I loved it. It's so crunchy, right? Character creations in Pathfinder Starfinder is so crunchy, but there's something about that type of game that really scratches something in my mind. But yeah, okay, cool. So you are designing several different things right now.
Yes.
What is the one that you think is going to come out first, and what? Well, tell me about it. Tell me what makes it you.
Oh geez, I have a lot of weird little ones. One I really want to like throw together, which should only really take me a day. Um, it's called Before You Go, and it's something I
Wonderful
came up
name.
for a class once because I took a class from someone I've worked with. Uh, she runs I Can't Con games and makes like little cool games about philosophy and more experiential type things. And she does kind of more like pushing that angle of RPGs as performance art. And so I was like, I want to make a little game in that kind of vein. So it's a 2-player role-playing game. It's not about dice or anything like that. And the premise is sort of like whether it's a blind date or something else. You both come up with like a random wacky character, and you sit down and you have a conversation, and there's like a timer. And when that timer's up, the round ends, and then we cut to a time skip sometime ahead. And there is a 4-round game based on a plot structure. I forget the name of it. Found in Japanese poetry. And
wow.
I think it's
Yeah.
like really cool. Like meant to be like a mini like short kind of experience.
Yeah.
Like played once. And it's cool to see the kind of like evolving, effectively 4-act structure through just completely random characters. Like I played it at one point. Someone was a pirate and they got into a really heated argument with somebody else. And another time, someone cried, which is kind of a good thing.
Oh man, I love that. I love those simple, short narrative games that you can finish in a session, right? Remind me to send you the rules to Adam Muskevich's Vampire the Dracula. I think you would love it. He would get a kick out of the fact that I still have the rules. He ran it for us at Chaosium Con. Essentially, the way it works is you take your players and someone's the storyteller, but everybody is a type of Dracula. It doesn't have to be literal, but when I played it, we were all very literal types of Draculas, down to really silly Draculas. Andrew lost his ability to be one because somebody picked his, so he became a mosquito. You have to pick your Dracula's Mina. You essentially build a Mina together. All of the Draculas are going after and courting this Mina. It can be an idea, it could be a person, like it could be a place, and essentially you are vying for that Mina. It was so silly and fun. You tell this little story together, and it's simple. It's good for a party. We played it in a hotel lobby. Those experiences make TTRPGs for me.
Favorite little ones when I just play with people very casually, like meet up in a lobby or whatever kind of room. It's called Everyone is John, and it is a fantastic time, and I highly recommend it. There's
John.
one character called John, and you are all playing like different voices and like intrusive thoughts in John's head, and each player has their own secret goals for what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And then one person's a GM, and whenever you try to do something insane, like you roll for it, and if you fail your roll, you lose control of John, and then it's a free for all to take control. And so it's just like one kind of NPC having this breakdown, running around doing ridiculous things. It's great. No setup needed. It's
incredible. All right, you are incredibly intelligent. When you talk about TTRPGs on TikTok, you view them from an angle that I never consider, and it always blows me away. If I were to build a dream team of people that I could work with, you're definitely on that list. I would say you, Penny, because I don't know if you know this about Penny. Penny is a math genius. So Penny created a random number generator to make sure that the imposition dice system for Jeff was fair and balanced, which is crazy. Penny is going to be on sometime soon, so we'll cover that then. It would be you, Penny, probably Jeff as well, and Andrew, because he's really good at design and stuff. Andrew and I want to make as many games as possible with as many cool people as possible. There are areas where we both excel and there's areas where we don't. We're realizing that more and more as we create. Having a team is such an important thing because, like, one, it lightens that load on releasing a thing, but also it means you have experts focusing on one area. You are like the UI and design aspect person. The way you talk about game experiences is so important for game design, and it's something I never think of. I've been trying to channel my inner Alice on this last edit of my book because I was like, oh, Arl, I need to make sure that the rules are here. Even though I'm running it in a different system, Cypher system, I need to make sure that the rules are in the book and are in a layout that someone's going to be able to turn to that page, follow that flow chart of how to play. And I started thinking about that because I was watching your videos and I'm just like, oh, that makes so much sense. I cannot pick up a book like any of the books on my shelf and turn to the how to play rules and learn how to play that game.
Yeah, they're bad. They're
They're
terrible.
bad. So bad. So tell me about that. How would you fix well, just pick a system. Pick any system that you think you could fix. Tell me how you would fix it so that it is easily learned and understandable.
Yes. Okay. So there's a few things you could do, and this gets into kind of user researchy things. The first is a card sort. Card sorts are great. You can do them digitally, but they're more fun to do physically, personally.
Yes. Always.
You get a bunch of index cards. Write on it, in this case, each rule or section of your book.
Mhm.
And you can optionally, if you want to do a closed card sort, you'll write, if you already decided, here's what my chapters are going to be, write those chapter names on index cards as well, in like a different color or something, and put them at the top. Otherwise, if you want to do an open card sort, let them come up with what those categories are, those chapters. If you want to do a hybrid, you can do a bit of both. We're like, hey, here's some ones I have, but you can also make in your own if you want. And then you have a big stack of index cards that's those sections, those little details, those rules, right? And then you want your users to, if you have those like chapters going from left to right, kind of across, in columns underneath them, put down those rules, like put them into groups. What groups do you think make the most sense? And if you do that with a few people, like 3 to 5 people, you will start to see the patterns of how people intuitively think about and understand how those rules should be sorted and where they should be. That's going to be huge. The second thing would be in sessions and playtests, you want to keep careful track of, record the sessions if you can, but get written consent to do that.
Right.
What questions are people asking? What do people want to know? If they're looking for a rule to reference something, especially in a character sheet or whatever, or in a book, when do they do that? What's the context of that? Do they do that early in the session, late in the session? How long does it take them to find that? Where do they look first? Bad character sheet design, you can always see because someone's looking for something and they look in 2 to 3 places. Just notice where they're looking first and put it there.
Yeah.
Because, like players already kind of, we have some sense, like we know what we want, but it's not there.
Yeah,
and just follow the people. So many designers like just have their idea and they do that first.
Yep.
And then it's not what people actually want. And that's that disconnect.
You actually talked about this recently, and I was like, oh, that is genius, because even on D&D Beyond, it is impossible to find your spell saves. Not impossible, but it's not where you would want it to be. I feel like it's one of those things that should be always a constant, right? You should be able to look right where it's at, no matter where you are on the character sheet. If your AC is going to be there, I can always find my AC. Why can't I find something as important as my spell save and spell attack? It's funny because I've been trying to do what you said for the Cypher system, because I love the Cypher system. I don't know if you've had a chance to play it. Hopefully you will soon with the thing that I want to do, but I love it. I think it is a very narrative freeing system while allowing very in-depth character creation to make sure that you, as the game master, are allowing your players to be whoever they want to be. The rules are extremely simple. However, it took me a year to master the system because I kept stumbling on new rules. They weren't all in the how to play section. I personally think that you should have 2 sections right next to each other that contain all of the rules: how to play, how to run. There are things that I found were super important that I didn't find out until later. Because of that, it caused tension in my game, in my home game, because they would be like, yeah, but this says this here. And I was like, technically the rule says this here. Let me give you just a simple example. And they have their how to play section. And so it's super good, awesome, love it. But there are things like special abilities in Cypher system. some of the rules for special abilities are in that chapter, 5 chapters later from the how to play. That is not great design. It took me 6 months to learn that every special ability you use in Cypher System has to be rolled against the difficulty of the bad guy, which was a huge relief to me as the game master, because it meant that players weren't auto succeeding on ridiculous things like stasis, basically making a bad guy frozen for an entire minute, but you can't attack them and they can't take damage. So it's just annoying. It's more so the players are able to monologue at the bad guy, which is fine. Give your players chances to monologue. If I'm going to get a chance to monologue, go ahead, monologue. But it's insane. It should all be there. So I ended up going through to create a document that is step by step how to play in all of the important rules. And I'm just like, I should not have had to have done that. What system have you played that has the most heinous examples of this?
Oh goodness, I need a minute to think on that. Because if they're bad ones, I will just kind of like mentally reject them pretty quick. Oh, I did remember one. Oh no. Okay, I'm gonna bully. I'm gonna bully a design company.
That's fine.
So I got a shell, and another game fell. The Excellence out of con. It's really cute. It's really small. It's amazing. It's cute. It's about being like little princesses in kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of setting. So it's like She-Ra. You know, it's a very cutesy rules like systematically. I'm really excited to play this. I think this is great. It's really simple. However, it's made by 2 people, and neither of them has a sense of UI UX. It's really bad. And it's like, and this is this tiny book where this should be very straightforward. And they're doing their best, and I'm sure they've absolutely learned their lesson and can improve from this. But it references like mechanics that you don't understand what they are until later. Even at the end, because different stats and stuff, they have example characters and things, and they describe like these different archetypes of characters. The characters are in a random order that do not at all correlate to the earlier ones in the book. And so it's like, it's designed by someone who first learned their own system and then wrote it down. So they're referencing things that they already know because it's in their head, but you're not going to find until way, way, way later. And I find myself flipping back and forth through this little book. Like the poor spine's already kind of worn out. I haven't even like run this once yet because I had to keep bouncing around. And it breaks my heart because like I want them to succeed and do well. Like if they wanted to make a second edition, like I would do that. I would love to help. But yeah, that's the most recent one. It's probably not the worst. The worst is going to be Fatal. I'm just going to assume out the bat. That's one of the worst written books of all time, along with the new TSR stuff. But I don't criticize them in detail because never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake, right? If people are like, we don't want any minorities to buy our games, and then they release like the worst game ever, like, great job, bud, keep it up. Like you are on track where you're supposed to go.
I always love when a company releases a product that is equal to their terrible standing. You know what I mean? It's satisfying because it's like, cool. I mean, what was it? TSR allegedly. I'm just gonna say allegedly. I know that like I shouldn't run my mouth on things, and I'm gonna say allegedly, just even though we know what happened. When they tried to steal all of the IP and stuff back, I think it was like last year or the year before, and they thought they were really gonna get away with like trying to retake Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, and I'm just like, you, first of all, you're not even the actual TSR. Like, like there was a period where like TSR was bought, and then that happened. I will say the other Gygax, Luke, very nice man.
That's great.
So, but yeah, that sort of fumble blows me away when a company really like has the audacity, and then they come out and they release something, and it's like, oh, you have no business touching that. Not saying they can't grow from it, not saying they can't correct their mistakes to become better people. I hope they do. But all of a sudden, you just kind of get these really two-dimensional games from that style of thinking. You know, there's the OSR versus NSR, yeah, New School Revolution and Old School Revival, where with a lot of OSR stuff. At first, I didn't think I was gonna like it, and then we played Shadow Dark at Gen Con, and it's like you take Dungeons and Dragons and you take like so many steps out of it, and you just have this like really grindy, crunchy, like super deadly dungeon crawler. And I was like, oh, this is what an OSR game can be. And then I started reading Dungeon Crawl Classics or DCC, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. This is what, you know, because I can't remember what they were. I was playing some, they were just bad. And so like I was kind of judging the entire thing off of games that were just bad. So, yeah. Let's see. So, you said that you kind of did UX and UI and all that stuff with like professionally for like
Yeah.
companies and stuff. Tell me about that. Tell me how that influences what you do as a TTRPG creator now.
Yeah. So currently, I work at kind of two like little indie game design collectives, which is pretty cool. The first is Hive Frog Studio. We make Pathfinder 2e supplements.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they started before me. I kind of came in later, and they were switching publishing software. So when I came in, they got out a product that like looked good, like met their standards, which was nice. But like opening the techie like backend document of how all the text boxes were and the styles, it was a nightmare. And I was like, oh no, like you sweet summer child, like let me help. This is hurting, and this must have
Yeah.
taken you so much time. So I like hyper fixated through a whole weekend and like rebuilt all that infrastructure. So it's super fun. So Hive Frog Studio, I helped out on. I was like the lead layout person on the Counterspell Codex,
Yeah.
which is they redid like the Pathfinder 2e Counterspell rules. Also, I wrote some of the fun flavor text in there, which is great. I'm very proud of that. As well as Crypt, which is a new company. I'm trying to set up a website. It's a bit broken right now, but soon it will be fixed. Um, so it's at Crypt Create. It's on a lot of social media. It's cool, kind of spooky, gothic stuff.
That's awesome.
Working on video games and tabletop games, and I am the lead on a like a big TTRPG that my boss is testing at a convention somewhere on the West Coast this weekend, which is super exciting.
That's cool.
And so I'm making like really cool stuff for character creation and things. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say exactly.
No,
but,
I understand.
Yeah, but check out at Crypt Creates big exciting things there. Um, but if the name means anything, like Crypt, it does kind of aim towards like more like cool gothic kind of
Yeah.
projects and stuff like that, which is very awesome. Like, but I like more kind of like academia, cottagecore, like the other end of like the lesbian fashion spectrum.
Right.
So that's yeah, so that's like kind of why I wanted to start making my own stuff with Feypop and just
Absolutely.
yeah.
You are so much more in the professional space than I even realized, which is awesome. That's super cool. I'm incredibly jealous, because like that's where Andrew and I want to kind of like go with everything we're doing. Like we got the podcast, we have an LLC. You know, eventually we would
Nice.
like to just make games as well. And like my dream company to get hired in for would be like doing world building for Cypher System, or Monte Cook games in general, because I love creating stories, right? I love the world building aspect of creating games. That's why I chose a setting book when I decided to do my first Kickstarter, because that's where I'm the most comfortable. Whereas Andrew decided to like go all in on game mechanics, and that terrifies me. Uh, it's scary because like it's so much math, it's so much thinking, and I was just like, nope, that's not me. So it's yeah, I envy. where you're at with that. What is so if you had a goal to like one specific like to go be above and beyond in the industry, what is it that you see Feypop being and releasing?
Okay, so yes, because I've been thinking about this and I've been working on business plan scrawls in the background. Um, it's hard as an indie dev to make good enough margins to succeed full time, right, and to keep this going. So, and I've Pirate Software, who like does video games, like has had great videos talking about this and stuff like that. Phenomenal resources as well there. And it's about kind of strategizing and being able to make it more of a kind of a brand. So streaming is great, content creation is great, other merch and stuff is great. And so what I kind of want to do is start sort of like seasons where I have here's a theme or something, and then here's some fun like stickers or whatever to kind of go along with it. And then like we're gonna make games like this kind of on stream, or maybe like play games like this. You like review other games and books, because a big part of that is research. If you want to write, read. If you want to like design games, play games. Indulge in as much of that as you can. So I do kind of want to be more kind of multimedia and learn about stuff and like old games. I dig into like history and old stuff a lot. I found some really funny weird stuff like Ed Greenwood's very not okay rants on things.
Yep.
And I love kind of digging into that. Yeah. And it's, like you gotta love that commitment to world building, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Ask me any question, I will be there with an answer. Like appreciate that tremendously. So, yeah, so I'm kind of working on like have like a little theme, and then like the centerpiece of each one would be, and then release like a little RPG, even if it's just like a one-page thing, kind of quarterly. And I think kind of it would be really fun to build up that momentum. I have a friend who's figuring out how to make dice. It'd be cool. Like, we could make like stylized dice that go with the thing, and then have like little kind of trends, which is how other industries work. It's how like fashion works and stuff like that. And it'd be really refreshing to kind of be like, Magic the Gathering does this with their different sets. Like, what are we doing this time? And be able to practice like small scope projects and then bring people on with like different artistic styles and things. Like, that would be my goal, to scale up, to bring a bunch of people in and make different types of stuff all the time.
I love that. I find like the idea of a ever evolving like game or idea, right, where it's not like once you've bought into it, that it's not the end of it, where it's almost like live service as a book, which is cool. Do you know, or have you played any Gilla RPG games?
Gilla RPG? I'm not familiar with that. What are the names of their games?
There's Hunt, there is Nova. I think you would absolutely dig the vibe of the company, specifically because it's two people. There's the artist and then there's Spencer. And with Gilla, they really want to kind of like, they do solo RPGs, they do like group RPGs. They created their own system called the Lumen system, and there's Lumen 2.0, which is what they're using now, which is mostly diceless. So there's Rune, Slayers, Reap, where essentially you are a Reaper and you're going around collecting souls. There's Hunt, which is my favorite party RPG. They have a pretty good UI. I'm not an expert like you. I am sure you could find things that could be better. It's very art forward, like artistic rules and stuff. He's creating games that he's updating and releasing more content for, so people can keep playing them. When you say that you want to keep evolving and releasing stuff, it reminds me of that, and that's kind of why I said live service as a game.
It's like a way to funnel like ADHD into like
exactly.
No, we're gonna pick one small scope theme, make whatever you want as long as it fits this, and then move on to the next thing. It gets to bounce around a lot.
Right. Thank you. That was exactly where my brain was trying to go, and I just couldn't bring it up. It's 88, like, it's instead it's like, okay, cool. Broaden the scope. You start in one place and then it just gets wider, and more inclusive. So you mentioned video games earlier. And video games are a wonderful place to start when it comes to building a TTRPG or finding inspiration for a TTRPG. What What would you say? Because you like the cozy cottage core side of things. What game do you look at and you go, I wish I could build that TTRPG of that game?
Okay, this is something I'm obsessing with, and it's a project I wish I could be like, this is my first big TTRPG project, but I can't figure out what mechanically to do with it. Would definitely be cozy games, like a Stardew Valley type thing.
Oh yeah.
Because just demographically, like cozy gamers are really committed. They're all in. That becomes a hobby. That's a lifestyle.
Yep.
TTRPGs are cooperative and not like competitive and angry. And the ret stories and emotions, like that hit that well. Or even a solo game is very kind of cozy and soothing and journaling. That type of like TTRPG and cozy video games should be like a perfect match.
Oh yeah.
But it's not there. It's not there. I've seen a couple like Cozy Town, Stew Pot. These things come and go, but you have to like really research for them hard. And I don't know what the secret sauce is that's missing. I've recently read, oh gosh, what's the book? It's right here on my show. Legends and Lattes. It's like a great book that's about like a D&D adventurer retiring and then opening a tavern. We know this is here. Where is the game? Where are the games? I want that so bad.
What is your favorite video game of all time?
Oh gosh, favorite video game of all time. Okay, so games I play and what I consider to be a good game are different. Like, I play Overwatch 2 with my friends, but I do not consider that to be a good game at all.
No,
and
yeah,
it's
not
very
at all.
obvious to me that they specifically fired whoever was in charge of their like user experience design.
Yeah.
Because I've just been messing up more and more. And now my friends are starting to get lost in the interface. They're like, how do I quit the game? Which is bad. It's really bad. As far as like a really good game where I'm like, damn, that's a good game. Two that come to mind, Portal 2, I think is just a masterclass. Like if there's a Criterion collection for games, Portal 2, I think fantastic. And I'll just throw in for funsies a little one. Frog Detective. It's like 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
You're a frog and you're a detective. And
That's
it's just a really cute.
It's perfect.
It's almost like a point and click adventure game, but like you like walk around and you just like talk to NPCs and you try to solve little mysteries. And it's just a good time if you need to like a pick me up and you have 20 minutes.
I have never heard of Frog Detective. I will have to check that out. My wife is obsessed with frogs. I think I'm going to have to tell her about it too. Because she's also kind of a cozy gamer, right? She's Animal Crossing and, not Stardew, surprisingly. It's because of time limits. She hates time limits. She can't, and I get it. I understand. I get lost in games. I have like 500 hours in Stardew Valley where, I'll just play through an entire season a day. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's 3:00 in the morning. What was I doing? So, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned like how Overwatch, like it's not really a good game, right? It's one that you can put a bunch of times into. It's a lot of fun with friends. I'm going to make somebody angry, and it's probably going to be Andrew. That's how I feel about Destiny. I think it's conceptually cool. Even though I love a game like Stardew, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time in this grind and rinse repeat structure. And so games like Overwatch, where it's just, team shooter, right? Or an icon shooter or whatever they're called. With Destiny, it's very much along the lines of, okay, cool. I'm going to replay this mission until I have the best item from it. That doesn't interest me. I want to play through the story and be enthralled with my friends. The same way that when we were young, we played through Halo 1, 2, and 3, right? We worked together through this story on Legendary, and it felt like an accomplishment. Destiny has accomplishment, but it doesn't hold me because in order to get that accomplishment, it feels like you have to spend so much time trying to get your character perfect and your armor perfect. And I'm just like, let me play the game.
And this thing, there's different types of player engagement, and this has been like studied and broken out into categories. And some people, they do just get I think it's closely related to that competitive urge where it's even if it's just themselves, like doing a racing game again and again to get the fastest time. Some people just like that perfection, like I'm as good as I can be, I'm the best. I don't care about being the best. I assume I'm not the best. I thought it'd be really funny, and I still might do this if it's not going to get me in legal trouble, to release a TTRPG with like the world's sixth greatest role playing game on the top. Just like cop the D&D slogan and just
Yeah. Oh, you
yeah,
wouldn't
this
get
isn't that great.
it's fair use. It's
Yeah,
parody, right? And parody
yeah,
is protected. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't try to be, uh, jerks about it. But
yeah. And I feel like, look, like I'm saying you're better than me. I'm saying I'm the sixth best. You
yeah,
can have
sixth
first.
best. Yeah, it's fine. I don't need to be the first best, because just because something is the first best doesn't mean that it's actually the best. It just means that a lot of people play it, and that's not always the mark of a good game, right? I like I said, I think Dungeons and Dragons is a perfectly fine game, and I will probably always play it. Whether I move on from fifth edition to whatever new editions they do, I don't know. It's I'm getting old, so it's hard to pick things up. But like numbers mean very little. I think Penny was talking about it best, where she said that just because it's the game that's has like the highest player count doesn't mean that it's the easiest to learn. In fact, Dungeons and Dragons is easily not the easiest game to learn.
Not
It's
at
just
all.
there's resources to learn it. And so you can kind of pick things up through osmosis. Whereas, oh, let's see. Girl by Moonlight, right? It's a Forged in the Dark game. Forged in the Dark is fairly simple and easy to pick up. And so is Powered by the Apocalypse with Thirsty Sword Lesbians. They're really good games, and I would say they are better games than Dungeons and Dragons, which is, my opinion. But they capture something different for me that feels very focused in a way that Dungeons and Dragons hasn't been focused in years.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it can't be anymore.
it really can't, because everybody takes it apart, and they build this strange system that shouldn't it shouldn't be. Um, like Dungeons and Dragons is really good at fantasy, but it's not even the best at fantasy.
Not at all. And it's technically not like heroic fantasy or anything. Like
Yeah,
just in terms of the composition of the plot structure and what it demands. It's not a genre. It's
yeah.
just D&D.
It's not. It's become more of an SRD, like system reference document, than anything, because most people don't play modules, right? Most people are building their own little world off of it, their own homebrew rules. For example, my buddy Quentin is running a because it was easiest for him, and he knows Dungeons and Dragons the best, and I needed a break from DMing. For he is running an Avatar: The Last Airbender in Dungeons and Dragons, and it's great. It's so much fun. So we've talked about games that have bad UI design, bad UX design. What what games do you think have really good UX design that you didn't work on?
I'm going to say Morkborg. This is a
Yes.
really hot take. I don't think Morkborg is a good game. I don't think anyone has praised Morkborg as a game. But everyone is like, those books are the best thing I've ever seen. And that carries it. And that's enough to carry it. And they keep succeeding with that as a formula. And I'm so jealous. They got the frightful colors, like really gorgeous, like European inspired kind of graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
Page layouts are all different. Yeah, so they kind of like, it gets a little more artsy than just like solid, reliable, usable UX. Fate Accelerated has really good UX, especially for the time that it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love like old Fate books. Yeah, by Evil Hat.
Mm-hmm.
That's like one of my favorite all-time systems. But yeah,
They're one of my favorite companies in general. I've already mentioned several of their games, right? I probably own more Evil Hat games than I own any other. The design always pulls me in. With Morkborg, it's definitely not a perfect game, but it is so understandable when you flip through the book. The design is wonderful, but also because it is so versatile for like weird genres. Pirate Borg and Cyborg and all of these ridiculous adaptions of the Borg system. I really enjoy it. I think it's really cool. And I don't think anybody should really strive to be the perfect game or the best game. When I look at a game and I see somebody who's written something, I want them to tell me they have fun playing it, if that makes sense. Because that's going to tell me a lot more than if it won Crit Awards Best Game of the Year, which I trust the Crit Awards with my life. I think they make great judges. But at the same time, like, if you can get through writing, designing, releasing this game, and at the end of it, you can still say, I love this, that tells me a lot. So many people, by the time they've released their thing, they're like, yeah, I did it. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad game. After all that work, they weren't able to maintain the same respect for it. They kind of burnt themselves out, and in the end, once they played it again, the magic wasn't there for them anymore. When you see somebody release a game and the magic is still there, that tells me that I'm probably going to enjoy the game, if that makes sense. So, Alice, tell me whatever it is that you would like to tell me that you haven't had a chance to talk about yet. Something you're just super excited about, something that really inspires you to keep moving, to keep working. It's not an easy question, so I'll give you a minute to really think about it.
Okay. I'll talk more about like a big thing in user research, and I think like the skill of being a designer and getting to the confident level, which is testing and feedback, like we talked about. You know, like, do you like your thing or do you hate your game? I think it should be a really good expansion on it. One of the hardest things about being a designer, and I think the thing that makes you a designer and not just like an artist or creative making stuff for you, is can you test it and get feedback successfully? And that is hard. That's a very hard skill. If you've never like had other people actually look at or test a game before, and you'll just expect like everyone to say, "Oh, OMG is great," you're in trouble. And if you cry the first time, that is totally okay. And I do want to like make several videos about this, but like if you're a believer in little treat culture, you know, get a little treat, have it on standby, show people your thing, and then you'd want to not say anything. A big part of usability testing where it's usability testing is not focus group testing. Usability testing is you let other people actually just play your game. You let other people use your app or whatever. And you walk them through it and you sit there with them and you take notes, look at their expressions, how long it takes them to do stuff, if they make errors, what errors. Just be quiet, be polite. Don't try to jump in and correct them or explain things or apologize over yourself. And if they're like, this is confusing, this sucks, keep that mouth shut. Keep going, get through it. Try not to cry, hold it in. And then at the end, you say thank you, let them go. You should have a list of all of the things that could be improved in a game. And I don't even at this point believe in necessarily like great games or really bad games. It's just a continuum where everything could be better. And literally all designing comes down to at a point is just learn to show people stuff, get really good at like taking criticism and feedback honestly and openly as much as you can. And then people will give you an amazing to-do list of just, here are these specific points. This was confusing. This is like too complicated. Just go down that list and just start solving those problems as best you can. And eventually get to a point where any remaining problems either are just not feasible given your time frame or the other design of the game. It's going to take more work to fix than is worth it. Or you just don't feel like it. Like that's just not the vision. That's not the direction you want to go. Or we've heard this already and we've already planned to fix. And once you've run out of like new problems that you're interested in solving, then it's done. So it's just like a rock tumbler of taking feedback and getting really good at accepting that without like openly sobbing and like ruining the controlled environment of the test in front of them, which does take time and that's okay. And yeah, a game is just, you know, as good as you want to make it. Like how much are you open to improving this and get there? And then once you get to the point where you're just exhausted with it, I then just release it, be done. Give yourself the permission. And
Yeah.
if it's made for people, it will be good by that point. People will enjoy it, and that's really what it's all about.
That's super good advice. Andrew and I ran into that with playtesting, especially him for Battle School, where just because you wrote it down and it made sense when you wrote it doesn't mean that it makes a lick of sense to anybody else. And my editor caught that for me. I was writing like a stream of consciousness and putting way too many details because originally I wanted my book to be system agnostic because I was like, oh, I want people to be able to use this for whatever. And it's like, yeah, but here's the thing. If you focus it on one system, right? For me, I chose the Cypher system. Somebody else can take that and go, okay, cool, I'm going to adjust this themselves because that's what gamers do, right? Reading it, my rules were such a mess for the one spot where I decided to include rules as a stretch goal. I was like, oh, you're right. I tried to literally fit the entire kitchen in order to serve this to somebody. And it was so convoluted because it was like, if this, then that. And it was like, no, no, no. Now I have an entire section that is dedicated to the Cypher system rules, like a quick play. This is how the racing mechanics work. And I was like, okay, that now all of a sudden it makes sense. It's understandable. Somebody can read through if they have learned how to play the Cypher system. Now they can look at these rules and go, oh, okay, so this is what oh, the difficulty 4. Okay, cool. I understand what that means now. And if someone wanted to put it in Starfinder, which Shades wants to run the setting in Starfinder,
Hell yeah.
then all they have to do is take that and you go, oh, so what's the win condition for the roll, and translate it. And it's like, oh, that is so much simpler than me trying to do all of the work for everybody in general. So yeah, I highly suggest running things through playtesters so that people can give you their brutal honesty. Andrew was told something oh no, I think somebody said it on this podcast, and that was, players are very good at telling you what is wrong with something. They are very bad at giving you the solution to it. Do not listen to the solution.
Players will also always suggest adding something or adding complexity and never taking something. A steady hand of a designer, like you can keep it simple and like, yeah.
And so it becomes a convoluted mess.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it's just thing on top of thing on top of thing. And then you go back to those base mechanics and they no longer work the way you want them to because you've added so much. The other thing I would suggest to people listening is hire a good editor. It's expensive, right? And I mean, expensive relative to whatever. But for me, spending any type of money is always going to be expensive because I grew up that way. But it is so worth it. Personally, I'm working with Meat Castle. Meat Castle has done editing on a ton of projects, and he's very good at picking out the flaws and telling you, like, hey, this is a bloated mess, or I like this. Really take that and grow that. That should be the focus of this. And the beauty is you don't have to listen either. If you still want your very specific voice to come through on something, that's okay. That's your choice. But you have the criticism to build off of, like you were talking about. So, Alice, Feypop, where can we find it? I know you said the website's coming soon.
Yeah, it's just going to be feypop.com. Feypop, look me up on TikTok, on Twitch. Also, I grabbed the YouTube handle. Haha.
Ooh,
so,
nice.
YouTube soon for longer form lecture rants about nonsense.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to end this in a very weird way, a way that I have not done before, but I would like to do this going forward in the future. I want to ask a very odd, arbitrary question that is TTRPG related. And it's because my wife asked it in the car, and she kind of picked on me because I started to expand. I thought too deeply on it. What is 1 hit point of damage in real life?
I believe it's how many cannonballs it takes to sink a certain type of ship. It's an awful system.
Yeah.
Break free from the simulation. Screw HP.
So it's funny. I went way too in depth with it, and she was like, "Oh, that's not what I was talking about." I was like, "Well," because I was like, "Well," I did this stupid example where I was like, "Well, a commoner has like what, 5 hit points,
It's a
right?
broken system.
It's a
Drop 'em off
broken
a cliff.
system." So like, does that mean that like, if you punch someone in the head 5 times, they're unconscious? Probably, right? And so I was thinking about it. I was like, well, heroes, these larger than life characters, they have a lot, and so like they can just take more. But like, you can't judge 1 HP, from a hero to 1 HP of a commoner, because it can't be the same. Like you said, it is a ridiculously broken system that makes very little sense.
Yep. Drop a commoner blacksmith and a level 20 wizard off of a cliff, and one will live and one will die.
Which makes no sense, because like a wizard is like supposed to be this frail breakable person, but also at the same time, right? Yeah, I look at it often. I think one of my favorite ways to look at HP in general is more about a possibility of death. And so you look at, and this is actually how Uncharted works. So when you're in battle and you're being shot at, just because you see the red around and your controller's vibrating, you're not actually getting hit by those bullets. What it is the Naughty Dog explained that it is more about the luck and you avoiding getting hit. And so as your HP decreases, that is your luck running out. And so when you do get hit, that's when you reach 0 hit points. If that makes sense.
I like that a lot.
Alice, thank you so much for coming on. When you release, we would love to have you on to run whatever it is you have for us, for the world, because we really want to play it. And that seems like an absolute blast. And we'll have another little interview episode where we just focus fully on that game. Of course, this episode was more just us having a nice conversation about TTRPGs in life.
Great.
So we would love to have you on to talk specifically about a game in the future. Everyone, if you are interested, please check out Feypop anywhere. I highly recommend Alice's YouTube TikTok channel. It's fantastic, very informative, especially if you want to learn more about the design aspects of a TTRPG and how to make it player friendly. Also, the questions you ask and the little trivias that you come up with, fantastic. So that's Feypop everywhere. That's Feypop. Please check it out. If you liked what we're doing here, please check out our Patreon, One Shots Tavern, anywhere and everywhere, all one word, on social media. Or you could just go to oneshotstavern.com. There you can find all of our socials. You can find our Patreon. You can find our merch store where you can get the Magic Missile tee, the Skull logo tee, and of course, everybody's favorite, the Coastal Mage Slayer tee, well, long sleeve tee. And check out the Patreon, where everything will always be ad-free. We will not have any sort of ads that we didn't record in person into the podcast. We are going to be releasing most of our video format. As you may have noticed, we don't do video every time anymore. It is a lot of work, and we need more time to process those videos. In the meantime, I do want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon subscribers. We absolutely appreciate everything that you do for the community. Jump into our Discord. Our Discord is /One Shots Tavern. Super easy. We finally got to the point where we can have a permanent link. So, as always, I'm DJ. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.